Hi everyone. In this video we will be dealing with some literary terms and concepts, and we will be taking a question that was asked for June 2020 from literary theory, and I will be explaining that question for you. So there are two agendas for explaining this question. One is to get you know about the different types of questions that can be predicted from literary theory, and the second one is that you will be familiar with the four concepts that was asked for the previous exam. So these are the two agendas that we will be covering in this video. And before moving on with this video, I want to have this in your mind while you are preparing for your NET exam, that literary theory is a very important module when it comes for NTA NET exam, because literary theory, we know the number of chapters that comes under literary theory are very less, and that's not just the case, but even the number of theories, the concepts are less, and the questions that are asked for literary theory are easily predictable. For example, if you know the name of the theorist and the theory to which he is related with, and the important works and the important concepts, you can say that you are technically finished with one author, or you are technically finished with one theorist. So that is the case of literary theory. So here you can see this is the question that we are going to discuss in this video, and if you want to answer this question, you have to know at least three of these theories. You have to know at least three of these terms or three of these concepts in order to answer this question. So that is where literary theory is very important. For example, you might know about heteroglossia and grand narrative, but you might not know about heterotopia and interpellation. Then you are technically unable to answer this question, and that actually takes away your marks. So when you learn literary theory, or while you are preparing for NT exam and you are at literary theory, you have to look at all the important concepts and important terms popularized, coined and developed by the important theories. They are very important. If you look at the different questions that are asked from literary theory for the NTA NET exam, you can find that most of the questions are related to these concepts or are related to the works written by the theorist. So once again, I am repeating that if you are learning from literary theory, or if you are preparing for yourself from literary theory, keep in your mind that you should never leave behind the name of the theorist, their important works and the important concepts popularized, coined and developed by them. So in this video, we will be dealing with these four concepts, and as I said earlier, this would give you an idea about how you have to answer a literary theory question and how you have to prepare for your literary theory, because these are the types of questions that are mostly asked from literary theories and also from literary criticism. Okay, so here you are asked to match list 1 with list 2, and in list 1 we have terms and in list 2 we have theorist. Okay, so here the terms that are given are heteroglossia, heterotopia, grand narrative and interpellation, and the theorists are Michel Foucault, Louis Althusser, Mikhail Bakhtin and Jean-Francois Lyotard. Okay, so here one thing that you have to keep in your mind while you get this question is that you have to identify. For example, it would be more easier for you to, even if you don't know the author or even if you don't know the theorist who have popularized the term, then try to categorize the terms into their respective theories. Let it be structuralism or formalism, new criticism, new historicism, whatever be it, try to categorize it under the theory, and then try to identify which theorist might be related with that particular theory or that particular movement. Okay, so even if you don't, this is the case, this should happen only if you don't know the theorist to which the term is related. That is just a way in which you can answer the question. But if you know the terms and its related theories, then you can directly answer this question. And again, as I said earlier, this is what makes the literary theory a very important module when it comes to NTA NET exam, because in order to answer a simply one question, you have to know the four terms and also the four theorists related with it. If you look at the theorists here, they are Foucault, Althusser, Bakhtin, Lyotard, and you might be familiar with any NET aspirant or any PG student would be very familiar with almost all the writers, but it is very important to know these terms along with this theorist in order to answer this question. Okay, so just let's just leave behind the terms and the theorist, and then now let's focus more on these individual terms. So the first term that we will be discussing is heteroglossia. So heteroglossia is a term coined by Mikhail Bakhtin. So here one thing that you have to keep in your mind is that heteroglossia, the term first appears in discourse of the novel. Okay, you have to keep that in your mind. Heteroglossia, the term first appears in discourse of the novel, and it was first coined by Mikhail Bakhtin. So let's look from how the word has arrived. So here we can divide the word into two. Hetero means many and glos means word. So together the word means many words. Okay, together the term means many words. So that is heteroglossia. Remember, heteroglossia, the term is coined by Mikhail Bakhtin in discourse of the novel. Hetero means many and glos means word. So that together gives the definition, that is, it describes the coexistence of distinct varieties within a single language. Okay, describes the coexistence of distinct varieties within a single language. If you look at a novel, you can see the different points of view, the different styles of speeches used by the different characters, or the different registers used by the different characters. So these are the examples of heteroglossia. That is, in a particular literary text, you are identifying multiple varieties, or you are identifying a plurality of voices. So that is what is called as heteroglossia, or we can say that a diversity of voices, styles of discourse, or points of view in a literary work, and especially a novel. So in a literary work or especially a novel, where you can identify the different types of register, or the different types of points of view, or the different types of discourses or literary styles or language styles, then we can say that the work is a perfect example of heteroglossia. And it occurs when characters or narrators in a novel uses different styles of speech. Okay, for example, if for example a particular character, he might be coming from a particular countryside which uses a dialect, and another character, and when he comes to the city side, or when he comes to the urban area, he might meet the other people who comes from different areas, and there is often a tendency for them to share the language that they used in their native land. So this is where the different types of languages, or the different types of styles of speech comes into prominence. So that is the example of heteroglossia. We can say that's a definition of heteroglossia. When we use a diversity of voice, styles of discourse, or points of view in a literary work, and especially a novel. And heteroglossia in a literary text, or in especially a novel, it appears in different ways, and the main two ways in which heteroglossia appears are a narrator switching between different registers within a text. A narrator switching between different registers within a text. If there is a speaker in that particular text, or if there is a narrator, if there is an omnipresent narrator in that particular text, and he uses different styles of speech to explain the different scenes, or different registers within a text are used by this narrator in order to explain the different chapters, or the different areas of described in that particular novel. That is one way in which heteroglossia appears. And the other way is through the characters. If one is through the narrator, the other one is through the characters, when the characters speaking in different styles of speech. Okay, for example, apart from these novels or literary texts, these are very much evident in certain movies. In certain movies, you can find that one or the other character will always be speaking in another dialect. Okay, so that is what is called as heteroglossia. So that is our first term, heteroglossia. So remember that heteroglossia, the term was coined by Mikhail Bakhtin, and the term actually means a diversity of voices, or we can say that the different styles, or the different a variety of the styles of speech used in a particular literary text, especially a novel. So that is what is called as heteroglossia. Now let's move on to our next term, that is heterotopia. Okay, heterotopia. So the thing that you have to remember about heterotopia is that it is a concept elaborated by philosopher Michel Foucault. Okay, so this is a concept elaborated by philosopher Michel Foucault. So about Foucault, we know that he is placed under a postmodern writer, postmodern theorist, and about Foucault we know about his different concepts, the different theories that he brought into prominence, including the biopower, etc. So heterotopia, he uses the term heterotopia in order to describe certain cultural, institutional and discursive spaces that are somehow the other, okay, which are disturbing, intense, incompatible, contradictory or transforming. Okay, so this is what is called as heterotopia. Okay, let's look more precisely into it. To describe certain cultural, institutional and discursive spaces that are somehow the other. So technically, what do you mean by the other? The other is something that is not accepted as normal by the society. Okay, anything that is not accepted as normal by the society. And who does who draws the margin of these normals? That is also the society. Okay, so the normal, the margin that who all should exist in the normal and who all should be cast out of this normal, these are all determined by the society, or these are all determined by the culture in which we live. So anything that doesn't fall under this normal, or anything that fails to fit into the conditions of this normal, that is what is called as other. Okay, so this other is what he calls as heterotopia. So it is a cultural, institutional and a discursive space that we called as other. It is another, it is a space that we call as another. Okay, it is a space that we normally used to refer to as the other. It is a space where the people really exist there who couldn't fit into this normal. That is what is called as heterotopia, and these are some examples of heterotopia. The ships, cemeteries, bars, brothels, prisons, gardens of antiquity. So we know that anything that comes under here is not considered to be normal, or anything that comes under here is not considered to be regular. Okay, for example, we have these bars, brothels, prisons. So these are all certain examples of carnival where there are no hierarchies, where everything is chaotic, everything is what can we say, everything is not in its originally shape, or everything is really upside down. So such areas where you send the people that you feel like they don't fit here. And we consider ships in that time because ships were not safe, and it was to the people who doesn't like to get settled, and these were the actually the modes of transportation used by the slaves, etc. So these are certain examples of heterotopia, where the space that are used by the other, okay, that who couldn't fit into the normal settled by the society. And about heterotopia, heterotopia follows the template established by the notions of utopia and dystopia. Okay, heterotopia, the word, it actually is we can say it's a combination of two different spaces, that is utopia and dystopia. And we know about utopia. Utopia is actually the term that was used by Thomas More in his novel Utopia, where he uses the ideal land, a perfect land where everything is fit. Okay, the government, the rules, the people, the religion, everything is fine, everything is perfect. But the question is how much realistic a utopia can be. Because the utopia, it's too much fictional according to Foucault. There is no society like utopia. And the other one is dystopia. Dystopia, we know, it's where everything is almost at its ruins. That is what we call as dystopia. So the term heterotopia, it also follows the template in which this utopia and dystopia are created. And a heterotopia, it is a physical representation or an approximation of a utopia or a parallel space such as prison that contains undesirable bodies to make a real utopia space possible. Okay, so in order to understand this example, in order to understand this statement, let's take an example. Why do we send people to jail? or why do we send people to mental asylum? It is because we want this normal to be safe. Okay, as I said earlier, heterotopia is a space that entirely covers the other. Why are we taking, or why are we pushing the leftovers of the normal to the other in order to keep this normal society, or in order to keep this okay society according to the society, in order to make them perfect? Okay, that is what this heterotopia does. According to him, a heterotopia, it is a physical representation, or we can say that it is a parallel world of this utopia that actually tries to make a utopia possible. Why are we sending the prisoners to the prison, or why are we sending the criminals to the prison? Because we want the society to be perfect. Okay, if he or she doesn't fit to be in this society, or to being a good social being, he or she is sent to either the prison or to a mental asylum or to somewhat other spaces, because we want this society to be safe, we want this society to be perfect, and this safeness and this perfectness is because we are aspiring for, or we are desiring for, a utopian world. So that is what is described in this statement. A heterotopia, it is a physical representation or an approximation of a utopia or a parallel space that contains undesirable bodies to make a real utopian space possible. Now let's move on to the next concept, that is meta-narrative. So meta-narrative, it is also known as grand narrative, and it is a term that was developed by Lyotard. So in order to understand what the meta-narrative or grand narrative is, we also have to know the parallel side of it, or what Lyotard actually proposes, that is the little narrative. So whenever you learn meta-narrative, you also have to keep in your mind the opposite of it, that is the little narrative. So let's have a look at what are these meta-narratives. So meta-narratives, also known as grand narratives, are developed by John Francois Lyotard, and he introduces the concept in the postmodern condition. Okay, remember the name. Lyotard brings the concept, or he introduces the concept in the postmodern condition to describe postmodernism as having incredulity towards meta-narratives. Okay, because he is trying to explain the condition of postmodernism, because postmodernism, they cannot swallow this meta-narratives, or they cannot digest this grand narratives. So Lyotard, he uses this term meta-narrative in order to show the postmodern condition where the people could not digest these meta-narratives or the grand narratives. So according to him, grand narrative or meta-narrative, it is a theory that tries to give a totalizing, comprehensive account to various historical events, experiences and social cultural phenomena based upon the appeal to universal truth or universal values. Okay, a theory that tries to give a totalizing, comprehensive account to various historical events, experiences and social cultural phenomena based upon the appeal to universal truth or universal values. According to them, grand narratives, it believes in a universal truth, or it believes in a universal values, and according to them, only one thing would always be right. Okay, they never give way to the diversity of voices or this multiplicity of speeches, etc. They often believe in something. We normally say that the history is often written by the winners, so we don't know the story of the losers. So here grand narrative, it follows, or it gives a totalizing system, or we can say that it gives a comprehensive account to various historical events or experiences or social cultural phenomena, etc., based upon how it satisfies these universal truths or universal laws. For example, you might be very familiar with the folk tales that have written to you, that have told to you. So here the one thing that you just have to analyze while you look at all these fairy tales or these folk tales are that they often follow a moral. Okay, for example, we all know about the Sleeping Beauty, the story of the Sleeping Beauty, where a witch cast a spell to make her fall asleep, and she has to be risen, or she has to be kissed by a true love, then only she will rise from her sleep. So we all know about the story, and we know that it actually follows a very totalizing system that that fleeces all these universal truth and universal values, that love will satisfy everything, or love is the most important thing in our life, etc. But recently a film has been released like called Maleficent by acted by Angelina Jolie, where you can find that they are trying to interpret this traditional folk tale or traditional fairy tale in order to give a voice to that witch who cast this spell. Okay, so here what am I trying to say is that what we have learned is a system, or a very totalizing or a comprehensive account of everything, be it history, be it experience, or whatever be it a cultural phenomena, whatever be it, they are totalizing it in order to satisfy this universal law or universal truth and value. So that is what is called as a grand narrative. There would always be a fundamental truth, a universal value that it tries to satisfy. So the narrative is a story that functions to legitimize power, authority and social custom. So this story or this narrative, you can say that it is a story, and the main aim of this story is to legitimize the power. Okay, it is to legitimize the authority and also the social customs, that those who haven't followed this is the end of them. So that is what we call as the narrative. For example, if we take this Indian epics like Mahabharata or Ramayana, we know that the people who stand with the goat, they are actually the winners. Okay, so but lately we came to know about the different writers who spoke from the perspective of the villains. So that's what, so that actually legitimized the power, the customs and the authority. It claims to explain various events in history, gives meaning by connecting disperse events and phenomena by appealing to some kind of universal knowledge or scheme. So this is what I explained earlier. It explains the various events in history, and they are trying to give meaning to these events, but as I said earlier, they are trying to give a totalizing account of it in order to satisfy this universal knowledge or scheme. So the concept was criticized by Lyotard in order to explain a postmodern condition, because these grand narratives, they were believed, they were considered to be true, they were considered to be the universal truth and universal knowledge till the modern age. But when it comes to postmodernism, after the World War, after being skeptical about the religion and about all the existing knowledge, people started to question these grand narratives. Okay, so that is what he calls as the postmodern condition, where you have an incredulity towards this metanarratives or grand narratives, and he characterized this postmodern condition as having increasing skepticism towards the totalizing nature of metanarratives or grand narratives. So people started to question this totalizing nature of the metanarratives. People started to question, why should it be always the truth? Why shouldn't we hear the response of the other character? So that is how the postmodernism, or that is how the characteristics of a postmodernism is explained by Lyotard. And according to him, postmodernism, it attacks specific notions of monolithic universals, and it encourages fractured, fluid and multiple perspectives. So rather than a universal, rather than a totalizing, all covering knowledge, postmodernism, they often supported the fragmented, they often supported the multiple perspectives. So we have heard that modernism, it mourns for fragmentalism, and postmodernism, it enjoy being fragmented, or it celebrates fragmentalism. So here you can say that when they started to enjoy fragmentalism, they started to accept the fragments. So that is where we have to split these grand narratives. And according to Lyotard, modernism supports grand narratives, and postmodernism, it supports another thing that is called as little narratives. So Lyotard, he claims that in meta narratives, a culture tells the overarching stories of itself, hiding several contradictions and inconsistencies inherent in a social order. So as we said earlier, the whole purpose of grand narrative is a story that would legitimize the power, the authority and a cultural practice. So this culture, when it speaks about itself, it tries to hide, or it tries to marginalize, or it tries to cover the insecurities, cover the mishappenings, cover all the negative shade of that culture. When, for example, if I am telling the story of myself, there is often a chance for me to hide my demerits, okay, and I would project all my qualities, I would project all my merits. So that is what happens in a grand narrative according to Lyotard. And postmodernism, it disbelieves meta-narratives and it focuses on mini or little narratives. And let's look why Lyotard criticizes meta-narratives, because according to him there is no philosophical or political theory can be totalizing. Okay, he is also a postmodern man that who believes in different voices or different perspectives. So he says that there is nothing that can be considered as totalizing, and no system can be all inclusive. Any attempt at enforcing universality will be violent and repressive. So these are the reasons why Lyotard criticizes meta narratives. And according to him, grand narratives, it lack credibility, they are oppressive and homogenizing, they are representations rather than absolute truth. They represent a particular culture who wanted to legitimize its power and authority and its practices, but it is not necessary for it to be always tell the truth. And about little narratives, they focuses on the marginalized, they focuses on the cornered, they are fragmented, they are anecdotal, they are luminal, etc. And apart from being a universal truth, if grand narratives they prefer or they claim themselves to be universal truth, little narratives they like to be called themselves as interpretations. They are trying to interpret it from different perspectives. And they are against the fixed stabilities of totalizing system of thought. Since they call themselves as interpretations, it shouldn't always be the true. Okay, so that actually calls for another different types of interpretation. So they are against this fixed stabilities, as we say, as the main feature of post-structuralism, that is the center keeps on shifting. Here also these interpretations keep on shifting. They never stop for a fixed stability. So that is our third concept, little narratives and grand narratives. And our last concept, that is interpellation. So interpellation, it was formulated by Althusser. So let's have a look at what is interpellation. It is the process by which ideology constitutes individual persons as subjects. Okay, for example, I am a person with my personality, with my characteristics, with my character, etc. But when an ideology consider me to just being a subject, that is what is called as interpellation. I am taken away my uniqueness, I am taken away my individuality, but I am also one among these subjects or like the others. That is what is called as interpellation. So this is a process in which we encounter our culture's values and internalize them, because it's not me who decides if it's good for me or not. Since I am born into this culture, I am brought up here, and slowly the ideology of this culture is internalized by me, and actually I started to believe in it. So an idea is presented to you for you to accept it. Okay, for example, I believe in my religion before I can even think for myself, okay, because it is presented to me by my parents, by the society, because they wanted me to accept it without any question. So that is what is called as interpellation. So interpellation, it works in a manner much like giving a person a name or calling out to them in the street. That is, ideologies address people and offer them a particular identity which they are encouraged to accept. Okay, ideologies, they address people and offer them a particular identity which they are encouraged to accept. So this is just like, for example, I haven't I mean, I am not the person who gave me my name, or I am not the person who gave me my address. Okay, later I might have a chance to change it, but it is just like this ideology. They are addressing you, or they address the people, and it offer you an identity that you have to accept, or they are encouraging you to accept it. Accepting or not accepting a culture's given attitudes places one in particular relationship with power. Okay, for example, they often encourage me to accept this particular identity, and whether or not I accept it or not, it gives me my power, or we can say that accepting or not accepting a culture's given attitudes places one in a particular relationship with power. Either if I accept it, I am in power. If I do not accept it, I am thrown away from the power. I am regarded to be the other. Okay, so that is what happens in interpellation. They are addressing me, or they are giving me an identity that I am encouraged to accept, and my acceptance of it or not depends on my, or it determines, I think the better word is determines, it determines my relationship or my place in that particular culture or society. So ideologies, it play a crucial role in constructing our identities and then giving us a particular place in the society. So to say that someone is fully interpellated is to say that he or she has been successfully brought into accepting a certain role, or that he or she has accepted values willingly. For example, if I say you are completely interpellated, or if I am completely interpellated, it means that I accept the identity that was given to me by the society willingly. Okay, so these are the four terms that we discussed here. So let's go back to the question. So these are the terms, and you have to identify the theorist. So we have heteroglossia, heterotopia, grand narratives, and interpellation. So we know heteroglossia, the term was coined by Mikhail Bakhtin. Heterotopia, the term was coined by Foucault. Grand narrative by Lyotard, and interpellation by Althusser. So you have to identify the order. So we know the answer A3, B1, C4 and D2. That is answer option number 3. Okay, so I hope this video is clear. So that's all for this video. So in this video we discussed about the four different literary terms that was asked for June 2020 NTA NET exam, and I explained this question so that you would get an idea about how questions are asked from literary theory, and also to get you know about the different terms and concepts that you have to keep in your mind and that you have to study while you are preparing for your NTA NET exam. So that's all for this video. Thank you.